You know, for the longest time in the world of medical tech, proving a new device was safe meant following a very rigid, very traditional path. But what if all that's changing? What if the data from your very own smartwatch could completely flip the script? Well, today, we're diving into real-world evidence, a pretty revolutionary idea that's reshaping how we think about safety, data, and innovation.
Okay, let's just jump right in with this question. Just think for a second about all the health data your watch or your phone is collecting, right now, every single day. What if all that info could be used for something bigger than just your fitness goals? What if it could help make sure the next pacemaker or the next insulin pump is safer and works better for absolutely everyone? Because, well, that's exactly what's starting to happen.
The reality is, every single one of us is creating this massive, non-stop river of health information. It's in our electronic health records, our insurance claims, and yep, our wearables. There's a totally new way of thinking that's looking at this ocean of data and asking, how can we turn this into powerful, life-saving insights? But to really get why this is such a big deal, you gotta understand what it's replacing.
And that brings us to the old way of doing things, the clinical trial. For decades, it's been the absolute gold standard for getting a medical device approved. But, as we're about to see, that gold standard, it has some pretty serious cracks in it.
So let's put them side by side. Traditional clinical trials are incredibly thorough, no doubt, but man, they are slow and super expensive. They also rely on these small, very carefully controlled groups of people, which, let's be honest, don't always look like the diverse mix of patients in the actual real world. Now contrast that with data from our daily lives. It's flowing in constantly, it comes from literally everyone, and it can give us answers so much faster. This gap is exactly what real-world evidence was born to fill.
Okay, before we go any further, we have to hit the pause button and clear something up. You'll hear people throw around the terms real-world data and real-world evidence like they're the same thing. They are absolutely not. And getting this difference is, trust me, critical.
First up, you've got real-world data, or RWD. The easiest way to think about this is like raw ingredients for a recipe. It's all the messy, unfiltered, totally raw health information that's collected every second of every day. From doctor's notes, pharmacy records, and of course, all those sensors we carry around with us. It's a giant, chaotic pool of information, but it's incredibly valuable.
And then you have real-world evidence, or RWE. So if the data is the raw ingredients, the evidence is the finished cooked meal. This is what you get after you take all that raw RWD and you clean it, you analyze it, and you structure it to get clinical proof. It's designed to answer one very specific question, like, is this new hip replacement safe for patients over 70? It's data that's been transformed into a reliable answer.
So, we've got this powerful new concept, but how are regulators actually putting it into practice? Well, what's fascinating is that the world's two biggest regulators are taking two very, very different roads. Let's break down the difference between the US and Europe.
The difference in their philosophies is, well, it's huge. In the United States, the FDA is all about one thing: accelerating innovation. They're actually encouraging companies to use real-world evidence before a device gets approved, to help get it to market faster or to expand what an existing device can be used for. But then you hop over to Europe, and it's a totally different story. Their focus is on continuous compliance. RWE is used strictly after a device is already on the market to prove that it's still safe out there in the wild. So two different goals using the very same tool.
But here's the catch. Tapping into this fire hose of data isn't a walk in the park. In fact, if you don't handle it with extreme care and rigor, you can end up with some really big mistakes. And believe me, regulators are rejecting submissions based on bad data every single day.
So, what are the biggest red flags they're looking for? First, this trap that big data automatically equals good data? Nope. Just because you have a lot of it doesn't mean it's right. Second, you have to remember that RWE isn't a magical shortcut to skip clinical trials. It's a powerful partner to them. Third, the data has to be completely traceable. Regulators need to follow the breadcrumbs all the way back to the source. And finally, and this is a big one, patient privacy under rules like HIPAA and GDPR is absolutely non-negotiable.
Okay, so with all those potential pitfalls, how do you do it right? How do you actually build a system you can trust, one that turns all this messy data into something that genuinely makes patients safer? Well, it all comes down to having a clear, rigorous process. See, creating trustworthy evidence isn't some kind of black magic. It's just good science. You start by defining a crystal clear question you need to answer.
Then you carefully select high-quality data sources that can actually answer it. From there, you design a formal study protocol, just like in a traditional trial, to make sure you're not introducing bias. You have to document every single step so it's transparent. And finally, you integrate that solid evidence into your official regulatory reports.
And that's really the bottom line, isn't it? The true game changer here isn't just about collecting mountains of data. It's about the painstaking process of transforming that messy real-world information into clean, reliable, regulatory-grade evidence that doctors, regulators, and most importantly, patients can actually depend on.
Which really gets to the heart of it. When a company does this right, when they build a system to really listen to this data, it stops being just a regulatory chore. It becomes a huge strategic advantage. It's a way of showing everyone that you genuinely care about patient safety, that you're constantly learning how your device performs long after it's approved. It proves you're not just ticking a box.
So all of this brings us to one final, really important question. As our world gets more and more connected and we generate these unimaginable amounts of health data, how do we make sure we build the right systems and the right level of trust to turn all that data from just background noise into a powerful force for a safer, healthier future for all of us? The answer to that is going to define the next chapter of medicine.